We're going to go through metal detecting 101 for those folks. Is there anybody here that doesn't have a machine? Okay, good. Good. I want to make sure that we keep this at the level so everybody is brought up to speed at the same time. So we're going to go through an overview, and then we're going to go into some product reviews. We're going to hit some terminology so you'll know what I'm talking about when we go through the machines. This is a great hobby. Young and old, male and female can enjoy it. You operate the machine the way you want to. You're not in competition with anybody. If you want to go hunt for an hour, you go hunt for an hour. If you want to hunt for 30 minutes and sit down, go ahead. It's a great source of exercise. You're outdoors. You're in the sunshine, the fresh air. You get to walk, you get to stoop, you get to bend. You can walk up and down the beach. You can spend a day at the beach if you and your wife or you and your husband just want to go to the beach and detect a while and sun a while. You can do that. I've been in a lot of hobbies. I tried golf. I didn't like it. I was a competition pistol shooter and rifle shooter for many years, and that cost me a lot of money. I've spent more on a handgun than I have on 5 metal detectors. And it just keeps costing me money. This hobby pays for itself. There's folks, where's that ring that you found? This young man.
Thank you for calling me young man.
This young man picked this up with a DFX this Wednesday.
Wednesday.
And what did they tell you it's worth?
12 to 15.
That'll buy you about a dozen DFXs.
Let me have that, George.
My personal best find is a $12,000 marquee diamond ring. And I'm happy to say I returned it to the owner. Now, the metal detector is comprised of 3 basic parts. Coil, which is just an antenna that transmits and receives. The control box. This is where all the smarts, the intelligence of the machine is. And all the connecting rods, and in this case, the battery pack. Every metal detector that you lay your hands on will have those basic parts. A coil, a control box, and something to hold them together. Now, today's metal detectors discriminate. That means they know the difference between trash and treasure. They can tell you that it's a pull tab. They can tell you it's a ring. They can tell you it's a nickel, a dime, a quarter. They can eliminate ground or electrical interference, also known as EMI, electromagnetic interference. They're lightweight. This particular machine weighs just a little over 2 pounds. It's a great machine for young folks, for the ladies, for somebody that maybe has a shoulder issue or something like that. I have one of those, and I keep a little 4x6 inch DD shooter coil on it, and I just terrorize tot lots with it. You can hunt with that thing all day long and just snuggle right up to tot lot equipment and stuff. All of White's machines, the coils are waterproof all the way up to the control box. So if you want to go to the beach and work the low water line and work in 2 feet of water, no problem. I recommend that if you do work the salt water, that you rinse your coil off once you're done. Coils come in different shapes, different sizes for different applications. This is called the spider coil. So it kind of looks like a spider web. And it's a concentric coil. It has an outside transmit loop and an inside receive loop. This is called a DD coil, or a double D coil. It's wound such that the transmit coil is over here, the receive coil is over here, and your signal is very narrow.
What do you mean by transmit and receive?
Transmit. We send an electronic signal, just like you transmit
Into the ground?
into the ground. That signal hits a metallic target. It generates an eddy current. Two things happen. That eddy current causes a delay in the target return, and it causes a phase shift in the target return. So between the delay, the phase shift, and the return strength, we can tell you what the target is and how deep it is.
And that's in the center ring is your return?
This is the receive, this is the transmit. This coil has a cone-shaped pattern all the way around. Now, your double D coils are better for heavy mineralization. Why is that? Because as you pass a coil over the ground, the first thing it sees is the ground. It always sees the ground. That's why we have ground exclusion balance technology, GEB. We actually make the ground invisible to the machine to the extent that we can. Okay? A DD coil, with its elliptical shape and its narrow pattern, has less of a footprint. Less of a footprint means less mineralization. Less mineralization means less ground noise. Same return from a target. So your target signal to noise ratio is increased. So if you want to cover a lot of ground in sweet soil, use a circular concentric. If you want a target separation, a narrow beam in high mineralization, use a DD coil. Now, where can you hunt in Florida? People ask about that. You can hunt the beach, you can hunt parks, you can hunt playgrounds, you can hunt sports complexes, old house sites. Most state parks will let you hunt from the low water line to the toe of the dune. It's best, if you're going to hunt a state park, to check with the ranger to make sure he knows what you're doing, that you're going to be in there. Most of the other state park ground is off limits. But if you only ever hunted the beach, I don't think you'll ever. Every time the tide changes, you get a new target field. It's a new beach every tide, so you've got plenty of time to go find a nice ring. And as these guys will tell you that have been doing it a while, you never get it all. You can hunt, if you laid off a 20-foot patch, 20 by 20 foot patch, and hunted it every day for a week, wait till a good rain, come back, and I promise you you'll find something else. Wait till a good freeze and a thaw and something rolls over. Coins on edge are harder to see, but as it heaves when it thaws and freezes, you get a target, a bigger target. You'll never find it all. You can find coins, which are new, the clad stuff. You can find jewelry, rings, buckles. I used to be a big relic hunter up in the Shenandoah Valley. Probably my best relic find is a Georgia State seal button. They're pretty rare. It's worth about $2,500.
I found a marijuana pipe if anybody wants it.
Yeah, I've found my share of those.
How'd you know that's what it is?
Well, it's obvious.
Sounds like the voice of experience.
My son came in the garage and said, "Dad, what do you got?" And I said, "Why?" He said, "I can smell from here. Get rid of that thing."
If you hunt, the average detectorist can find $300 to $500 a year just in clad. if you're a full-time hunter and you're really serious about it, it's not hard to go out and find 20 bucks a day. It's easy. And if you can find a place that hasn't been hunted, you know, and if you go out on the net, the White's website, you'll see these guys that, I found this virgin territory. They'll pull 40 or 50 bucks worth of clad in one day. Back in the 70s, when this hobby was really just starting up, and I was living in Virginia Beach, I have had to leave the beach. I hunted with a two-pouch nail apron to put my finds in. I've had to leave the beach and go dump my apron and come back. And there'd be days where I'd hunt for 6 or 8 hours, and I'd get 2 double pouches full of coins in one day. I mean, in those days, you could get $100 a week, easy. And it was nothing to find 3 or 4 rings in a day. But it's getting a little tougher now. The next question that a lot of people ask me is, what's the best detector? The best detector is the one that you can use the best. Owning the high-tech, high-dollar machine that you don't know how to use, that frustrates you, just makes no sense. By the same token, if you've been in the hobby 10 or 15 years, you've got the basics under your belt. You should be taking advantage of technology and improving your hunts. This is key. You want to avoid disappointment and frustration. If you get a machine that you absolutely can't use, you're eventually going to lay it down. And you've just spent your money and you're missing out on a whole lot of fun and a really good hobby. So how do you avoid that? You come to a place like Kellyco where you've got factory trained sales representatives, specialists. This is what people like Kellyco do for a living. It's good to talk to your buddy because he's got a DFX and he likes a DFX. It's good to talk to your buddy who owns an M6 and he likes the M6. But if you come to a place like Kellyco, we have factory reps here that will tell you the M6 is good for this, the DFX is better, Spectre can do this, MXT has this, MXT Pro has something else. So you tell the dealer what it is that you want to do and let them help you pick the right machine. Then you go away happy. You go away with what you wanted, what you needed, and what best fits your style of hunting. For example, if you want to hunt the beach 90% of the time, we make several machines that are designed, developed, and tested just to hunt the beach. It's not the best machine to hunt the grass. So if you decide that you want to hunt the beach 10% of the time, you don't want to buy a beach machine. If you never want to hunt the beach, if you want to go hunt relics, then we make a machine or two that's great for hunting relics. Don't take a beach machine out to hunt relics. Now you can take your relic machine out to hunt the beach, but you won't be as successful. So the thing to do is to just walk into a place like Kellyco and say, this is what I want to do. Trust the folks here to be honest with you, to help you. Don't try to impress them with your knowledge. You know, again, this is what they do for a living. They'll treat you right, they'll do you right, they'll get you what you need. I've known Stu and Frank and these guys for a long time. And this is basically what I just told you. This is key too. Again, I'm not selling anything, so I can say this. Stay within your budget. I've seen people that just buy the biggest machine, the most advanced technology the first time out of the box. They spend a lot of bucks. They have no background, no experience. They don't even understand the instructions to use it. It says set your recovery delay, set your ground balance if you have high mineralization. What's all that mean? You know? I recommend that you start out basic and work your way up. Because if you buy a good middle of the road basic machine, it'll pay for itself in a year or two. I don't know anybody that's serious about this hobby whose machine hasn't paid for itself. That's a fact. I can state that. I currently have 12 units hanging in my closet that go all the way back to the 70s, and every one of them has paid for itself time and time and time again. I found enough this year with my V3i to pay for all my machines again. Had a couple of good goal hits, ring hits on the beach. Okay. Think about the accessories when you buy your machine. If you come into a dealer, Kellyco or anybody else, and say, I want a machine, and I need headphones, and I want a coil cover, and I want a pinpointer, and I want a digger, and all these things, will generally put you together a package price. Now, because you're lucky enough to be close to Kellyco, Kellyco tries to get you started on the right foot, and they give you a lot of this stuff for free. I don't know any other dealer that gives away more product to either a first-time buyer or the 10th time buyer than Kellyco. Okay, product overview. We're going to cover 6 detectors: the Prism 6T, the M6, the MXT, the MXT Pro, the DFX, and our new flagship machine, the Spectre V3i. There's something here for everybody, from the beginner to the expert. We've got some specialized units that I'm not going to cover today. The Beach Hunter series, the TDI, which is a pulse induction unit that's made just for the beach and for relic hunters. Industrial applications, you need to go find a water pipe, or you need to go find property stakes or things like that. And a big 2-box deep seeker. If you want to see those machines, there's White's catalogs. If you don't have one, I'm sure John will get you one before you leave. I told you at the onset about some terminology. I want to cover a little terminology just so when I start talking about these machines, everybody will know what I'm saying. VDI, Visual Discrimination Indicator. That is a number that will come up on a display that has been assigned to a target. For example, if you hit a quarter with a White's machine, it'll read about a VDI of 83. If you hit a nickel, it'll read somewhere between 18 and 20. The nice thing about White's machines is if you have a machine from 1982, it'll read a VDI of 20 on a nickel. If you get the new Spectre V3i flagship machine, it'll read 20 on the VDI. So once you buy a machine from White's and learn it, you've learned all the machines. You know everything there is to know. Discrimination, the ability to accept or reject various targets. You'll find people use these terms, discrimination and target identification, interchangeably. That's wrong. Target ID says, what is it? Is it a quarter, a dime, a nickel, a penny? Discrimination says, I don't want to see this stuff. If you don't want to see it, the discriminator doesn't ever come into it. Or the target ID doesn't ever come into it. If the discriminator knocks it out, you're done. That's it, goodbye. You never hear from it. So discrimination and target identification are two unique capabilities within the machine. You can have a discriminator with no target identification. If you have a very basic machine that has no meter or no display, you can certainly set it up to reject pull tabs. All you know is it rejected something. Did it reject a piece of foil? Did it reject a pull tab? Did it reject a rusty nail? A piece of tin can? Likewise, if it goes over a quarter, you know you've got a target. It doesn't have any ID capability, but you know that you went over something good. Yes, sir?
You have to be careful when you discriminate, especially with the pull tabs they are today and things like that, because a lot of times that pull tab could be a ring, it could be cosmetic jewelry, it could be a lot of things.
That's true.
There's the trouble with it, all there's overlapping in the discrimination of what it is, and you don't know what you're looking at, because you'll get a quarter signal and you'll have a bottom of a aluminum can down there 8 inches deep.
There are ways to, you're absolutely correct, but there are ways, and after the seminar here, we'll talk about that a little bit. These things are tough too, especially the new ones. There's a lot of these
Well, they got
used
3 or 4
used-
different
used to be iron.
protection surfaces on them.
Now they're being tin plated again, so it makes them look non-ferrous. But there are ways to fight that, and I'll share them with you. While we're on this little side trip, the biggest thing you need to understand is that gold in 24 karat form, pure gold, is too soft to make jewelry out of. Pure gold you can tap with your tooth and put a dent in it. So they mix it with various and sundry amalgams. White gold is with rhodium or platinum, for example, and it will VDI in the range of 8 to 20. Yellow gold has, like this one, has a lot of copper in it. This ring VDIs at about 48. So gold lives in a range of anywhere from about -2 or 3 for a small gold chain to about a +50 for a big honking college or fraternity ring. These guys, our friend the pull tab, this one lives at about a 22 to 26. This one lives about a 38. This is what we lovingly call can slaw. You take a piece of aluminum can and run it through a lawnmower, you got can slaw. This will come up somewhere in the neighborhood of 14 to 18. And our little piece of foil, that'll come up anywhere from 0 to 6. All those numbers that I just yelled out to you there, gold lives in that range.
You said that gold could be a minus?
Mm-hmm. And if you'll look on the programs that are posted out on the Whites Forum, you'll see that the coin and jewelry programs all bring in about a -6 up. A small, fine gold chain will read about a -6, especially if it's all wrapped around on itself.
I've been walking right over that.
I've never dug a minus in my life.
There you go.
Wow.
Leave the high minus alone, that's ferrous. But if you've got like a -1, a -2, that's worth a dig. VCO, voltage controlled oscillator. I'll demonstrate one of these to you here in a minute. But as the target gets closer to the center, you'll hear the audio increase. And if you move it this way, we call it Xing the target. When it's loudest in both directions, you're right over the target. It's a great pinpointing aid. Which brings us to pinpointing. What is that? That's centering up or locating the target. When you get a signal, that whole coil is sensitive. It's the most sensitive in the center. So you don't want to dig an 8 or a 10-inch hole. You want to be able to narrow it down to exactly where that target is. That's called pinpointing. When you get proficient at it, you can take that coil and center up on a 10-cent piece and take an old screwdriver, is what I use, about that long with the edges rounded off, and you can touch that target. Ground balance. As the coil passes over the ground, it sees three basic things. It sees the outside air and anything that's in it, electromagnetic interference and what have you. It sees the ground and anything that's in it. There's two things in the ground that you're interested in. Mineralization, of which there is two types. Ferrous and conductive. Ferrous, iron-based. Old rusty nails, rusty tin cans, rusty bottle caps, hot rocks, cold rocks, things like that. And conductive. Wet salt sand is conductive. It's important that you understand that as we get into the description or discussion of these machines and the coils attendant to them and where you're going to use them, because you'll hear a thing called tracking. Ground balance removes the preponderance of your problem with mineralization. All the machines I want to tell you about today have an auto ground balance feature. You turn it on, you pump it over the ground a couple times, it reads the ground, and you're good to go. The older series, the XLT and the DFX, actually talk to you. It says, hold it at waist level, push enter. Put it on the ground, push enter. What some folks don't know, and I'll share with you too, is if you have an auto ground balance machine and it says unable to ground balance, doesn't mean you're not ground balanced. What it means is I have loaded the factory presets. There's not enough difference in the air and the ground for this thing to calculate an offset. That's really what you want. Your soil is so sweet, if you can't ground balance, you can run that machine as hot as you want to run it. That's a great sign. So, next time you go out and find a spot with your DFX that you can't ground balance and you don't have any EMI, run them filters down to 2, run that AC up as hot as you run your PAG up to 4, and just smoke the grass.
Short question on ground balancing. VDI, you know, if you watch the videos, they'll show a nice tone. It's, I never could get mine to do that. I just tried balancing like that. You just hear short blurps or something. Does that still say it's balancing, ground balancing?
When you get minimal tone, now V3I, is that what you're talking about?
I've upgraded that.
Yeah, you may have to turn your gain down a little bit because this thing is seeing so much more.
So
But-
if I'm at 15 and I'm trying to ground balance, don't do that.
Frankly, there's no reason to run it at 15. Let's use DFX as a benchmark. You had a DFX, right?
Yeah.
Okay. If DFX at AC 75 and PAG at 3,
Okay.
that's equivalent to running Spectra V3I at RXG of about 8 and your DS at about 65.
Okay.
Go out and do some air testing.
Okay.
Make yourself a set of these sticks and see for yourself. Okay, we went over mineralization threshold. There are two basic types of machines that you'll hear people talk about. A beat machine or a silent search machine. That's a beat machine. And a threshold machine. The threshold machine maintains a level of audio that you can hear. Threshold machines are inherently a bit more sensitive than even our digitized beat machines, for the simple fact is that we hold these machines absolutely quiet. So there's some amount of signal required to break into the sound region. That same amount of signal that's used to break into the sound region is what you would hear as a threshold increase, that little whisper signal on your DFX and on your V3i or with an MXT. Okay. First machine. Before I go into the machines, are there any questions on basic metal detecting, terminology, functions, coils, types, mineralization, stuff like that?
Sometimes on the threshold, when you don't hear a sound, that means that you've gone over something that's already been discriminated.
Yeah, depends on the mode you're running in, you're right. But even with the old TR machines, back in the day, up to today, if you're running the all metal mode, and you're sweeping along, and you hear that threshold dip, that initial threshold dip, 99% of the time tells you that you've run over a ferrous object.
But normally on the DFX, it'll stop. I'll have my hum going, and then it'll just stop.
Yep.
And then continue.
Yep,
That's what's called a null.
exactly. Exactly. When you hear that threshold drop out like that, you've run over a piece of ferrous material. It could be, number one, because a discriminator was set to eliminate ferrous, which 90% of the time you want to do. The only time you don't want to do that is if you're hunting relics. You don't want to pass over that big iron cannon that you spent all day looking for, you know. And two, it's just inherent to especially a concentric coil that if you pass over a piece of ferrous material, especially a piece of large, deep iron, that your threshold will dip for a second. Any more questions? I want to make sure.
On the threshold on the V3i, it says back it down till you can just hear it. Is there any advantage to running it louder?
Only if you're deaf.
Okay.
That's me.
That's me.
I run my days of, I was a weapon systems developer for about 40 years. Spent a lot of time around airplanes, rockets, missiles, bombs, guns. I don't hear so good anymore. So I probably run mine a little louder than I could, but a good set of
I
headphones.
can run it way down so I just barely hear
The
it.
best place is just so you have just that little crackle. That's when it's the most sensitive. The least little blip you're going to hear in that change.
What happens if you do run it higher, other than hearing it?
Not much. The only thing you might, if you get it too loud, you know, it's like listening to a stereo. If you hear it, you know, the little tinkle bells and stuff like that in the background, if you get the bass so loud that it's compressing your head, then you
No, I
probably
mean-
won't hear those little tinkle bells, and
No, what I'm getting at, if you run it higher,
you won't miss any targets.
there's no advantage to it then?
No.
Okay.
You want to run it right at the threshold of audio, no more.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, we were late getting in, but I caught the tail end where you were talking about the mineralization of the salt water. When you put the head into the salt water,
Uh-huh.
you get the sound, and then when you bring it back out, you get the sound. That's the mineralization.
Yes, ma'am. But if you ground balance your machine properly, we'll get into this when I hit DFX and Spectra. But a single frequency machine such as this, or MXT or M6, maintains one ground balance point. So if you're in the dry sand, you ground balance in the dry sand, as I put out on the forum. Ground balance in the medium that you're going to hunt in. Ground balance in the dry and work the dry. If you want to hunt a low tide line, go down to the wet sand, ground balance it down there, make sure you're in the beach mode so it knows what area to track into, and then hunt in the wet sand.
Thank you.
No problem.